Well, hello everyone and welcome to the video. I thought today would be a great day for us to have a sort of alien day where we're going to be taking a look at alien ships in game that we have. We're not going to do the Vanduul, we're going to give them their own video, but there is going to be some Vanduul ships in this because there's a crossover between Esperia and Vanduul themselves, but this is just going to be ships for humans. So the Vanduul ships we'll be talking about today will be the replicas, but we'll talk about that more later. So yes, alien ships in Star Citizen. Let's jump into our first alien manufacturer and give them their brief description, and that'll be Aopa, or Aopa, Aopa? Don't know how it's meant to be pronounced. I think it's Opa, Aopa, Aopa? Right, so Aopa, they're the first of the two Xi'an military manufacturers, the two Xi'an manufacturers we have in game, and they are the Xi'an military manufacturer. We've got another one that's their more sort of civilian, industrial sort of sides, but this is their military manufacturer, Aopa. They make all their military ships, and they have remade some of their ships for the human market, which is why we have them in game. The Xi'an, they're the giant space turtle race, so they are quite different from us in many ways. They've got quite different technology. They are actually, you wouldn't think of turtles as being really maneuverable, but when it comes to their space combat, that's what they excel in. They excel in these sort of really sleek, delicate craft with advanced thrusters and maneuvering thrusters and that kind of thing that we don't have. They have sort of like gimbaled. Like, you know how we have gimbaled guns on our ships where it downsizes them, but they can aim instead of just having to direct fire forward? Well, the Xi'an have gimbaled thrusters which allow them to move in very weird and unique ways, really fast, really delicate. Like, imagine if you could gimbal your whole engine so that if you just wanted to turn, like go that way, instead of slowly turning to face that way, then go, you just turn the engines, boom, start flying you that way. You'd obviously still have a lot of momentum going the other way still, but now all your new momentum, like thrust, is going the other. Yeah, you can get what I'm trying to say. That is Xi'an's special thing, and let's jump in and talk about their first ship, which will be the Car2Al. The Car2Al. The Car2Al is the Xi'an Empire's premium light fighter. Extremely fast, extremely maneuverable. This thing outmaneuvers an Arrow, which is the premium human light fighter that is extremely maneuverable, simply from the fact of it's got those gimbaled maneuvering thrusters and engines. It is really pinnacle technology of the Xi'an Empire, light fighter, extremely glass cannon, all about being nimble and dodging all fire. If it gets so much as sneezed on, it's going to be destroyed. These things are extremely expensive outside of game because you've got the military tax and the alien tax. And in game, I expect them to be really hard to come by as well, because I'm expecting you'd have to jump through hoops to get the reputation to be able to buy them, because it's both military and alien. So you're going to need to build up a reputation as with the military and the alien military, and so on, jumping through hoops, and then it's going to cost you a pretty penny in game too, because it's rare and exotic. So yeah, I really do not see the point in getting one of these unless you really have money to burn. That kind of thing. Like an Arrow is so much cheaper to get in game and out of game. So unless you want to be flashy, unless you want to fly like the alien tax type thing, yeah, you'll see that with most alien ships. It's kind of like an avoid unless you really want it for some specific reason. I don't really know how to word it, because avoid isn't really the right thing. It's a cool factor. It's a prestigious sort of thing to have. It's a sort of bragging rights sort of thing to have. You had to do all this extra work to either get it or pull out your wallet and buy it out of game. But yes, that sort of goes for all the alien ships, I suppose. So we should move on to the next one, which, if I go to my notes, is the Nox. I've got the Nox next because it's alphabetically next, but it is not a full-blown ship. It is a little bike like the Dragonfly we talked in the Drake video. Not much else to say in the tin here. They are made by Europa for the human market, but they are a bit more common. They do have a wee bit of alien tax on them. They're great for racing. Not much else to say here. Bikes. Let's move on to the next thing, which I really do not. The queer cartu? Cure cartu is how I think it's meant to be pronounced. No idea. The Queer Quartu is the Xi'an's military scout vessel. So it's a little light fighter designed to be like a scout. It's used by the Xi'an military, and they have been remaking some for the human market. Pretty much identical to the Cartu Al we talked about before, except being slightly less firepower, slightly less fightery, slightly more scout. So it's a scout. It's the scout variant, you could argue, of the Cartu Al. Now we should move on to the next ship, which is the Santokiai. Forgot to mention the Cartu Al is in-game, flyable, all that jammy stuff. And same with the Nox, you can fly that, it's in-game at the moment. And the Queer Cartu is not in-game at the moment, with no idea when it's going to be coming online. So moving on to the Santokiai. The Santokiai is the step up from the Cartu Al that we talked about in the beginning. It is the medium fighter. It is the mainstay of the Xi'an military, I think, at the most current time. It is got it's basically just a double Cartu Al, just two Cartu Als like slumped together. Got twice the engines, twice the firepower, twice the shielding, that sort of stuff. It's just a medium fighter instead of light. Is still, because it's a Xi'an, still really fast, still really great for like the medium fighters. It is the most fastest, most nimble. It has got like light fighter maneuverability, but it's also got medium fighter firepower, though it doesn't have medium fighter durability. So I see this as a really powerful vessel because it's got the medium fighter firepower in a standard light fighter sort of package. So it's like a light fighter with a hell of a lot of firepower. Get what I'm trying to say? Because it's not as tanky as other medium fighters, but it does have the maneuverability of a light fighter. So swings and a miss, swing and a miss. And then obviously the firepower of a medium fighter, this thing will be powerful as hell, and it will absolutely tear other light fighters and other medium fighters to shreds, and it's going to have the maneuverability to try and avoid and stay out of the damage in return. Like a skilled pilot of one of these, going to be a really powerful ship. But also going to be really hard to get a hold of, because as we talked about with the Cartu Al earlier on, just assume every single ship that we talk about today, you're going to have to jump through hoops to get in-game, and it's going to cost you a pretty penny in-game or out of game, just because of that alien, that rareness, and all that sort of stuff. So moving on to the last ship from this manufacturer, but not the last from Xi'an, and that is the Volper, I think it's pronounced. The Volper, I'm not even sure we've got proper images of it. I will take a look and see what I can find for this video, instead of just having that image unavailable there. But yes, it is the Xi'an's multi-crew light bomber, and it's not obviously not in game if we don't have images or that of it, and we don't know much about it at this point in time. I expect all the Xi'an stuff to really sort of get fleshed out once they start adding the Xi'an to the game properly, because at the moment we've got the Cartu Al. It's more like a proof of concept of the Xi'an in my mind. They've put the Cartu Al in, and that's the only, well, that and the Nox, but the Nox is a bike. That's sort of like their proof of concept, and I expect they will one day go, right, this is the year of Xi'an. We're going to be adding Xi'an to the game, NPCs to the game. We're going to be adding Xi'an military to the game as a faction you can interact with. We're going to be adding lots of Xi'an. Maybe the Xi'an system will come online at the same time. I expect it to come in sort of like a wave, so to speak. So I do not expect us to get any of these ships that are not released anytime soon. Not for a long time. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not if it's 4 or 5 years away, and then maybe we'll get the first Xi'an planets, the first Xi'an, well, more Xi'an stuff, the first Xi'an NPCs, the first Xi'an factions, Xi'an, all at once. That's the way they seem to want to do things from in the future, and it makes sort of sense that these sort of things come online similar sort of timing, because they push each other up, if you get what I mean. Like on their own, they're like, then you got another one, oh, that's nice. It sort of adds to each other, complements each other nicely. But we're not here to talk about that. We are rambling, so I think it is time we talked about the other Xi'an manufacturer, and that is Gatak. Gatak is the sort of polar opposite when it comes to Xi'an manufacturers. They are really new. We just got them announced this year. I think it was this year. It was either this year or late last year. I'm pretty sure it was this year. And it was they made Gatak because they already had EOPA, which was like the military manufacturer for the Xi'an. They wanted to have a Xi'an manufacturer that wasn't military. They wanted to have a Xi'an manufacturer that felt different, because they are a much older civilization in the lore than humanity. So it didn't make sense that humanity had all these different manufacturers, and then Xi'an, they just had one ship manufacturer. So this is their sort of way to branch out. The Xi'an give them a bit more depth, a bit more lure, and it's their second manufacturer. So far they've only got one ship, which we'll talk about in a second. But this is their sort of civilian industry, their main civilian industry, main manufacturer. Their sort of main industrial sort of side of things. So whereas EOPA are sort of like their leaning towards military manufacturer, Gatak are their leaning towards industry manufacturer. And so with that in mind, let's get on to their one and only ship, the Raylan. Not sure how to pronounce it again, all these weird exotic words. The Raylan, and this is their this is their first foray into the human market with Gatak. It is a small multi-crew transportation ship, often likened to a constellation Taurus, being a good competitor. It has indemnities on board for both Xi'an and humans. One of the Xi'an ones, which was quite interesting, is it had like a wall scratching bit, I think it was, where you could go up, the Xi'an could go up and rub their shell, because they're giant turtles, their shell to get a good scratch. And that is apparently one of the mandatory things on a Xi'an ship for Xi'an. So this ship is designed for both Xi'an and human crew. Not much else to say. It is not in game. We're not going to see it anytime soon, though. But once the Xi'an territories do come online, I expect this to be a really common ship in Xi'an territory. When you see Xi'an trading amongst themselves, or Xi'an coming out of their territory to trade with us, I expect to see this being quite a common little ship. I expect it to be like it's their Hull B equivalent. It's going to be their little Hull B. It's not quite big enough to be a Hull C. It does have 320 cargo capacity, which is quite good for its size, but nothing on a Hull C. Yes, with that all said and done, it's got that quite cool exterior. Once again, everything we talked about before with the alien tax, jumping through hoops, costing a lot more outgame than costing a pretty extra penny. All that still applies, though it's not as severe because you don't have the military and the alien tax here. You've just got the alien tax. So with that, that's all the Xi'an. And I think it's time now we move on to the Banu Soli. Banu Soli, and apparently the word Soli translates to the word guild, is just basically the Banu. The Banu are your exotic traders, sort of, so to speak, in Star Citizen. If you think back to like sort of pre-medieval times, the sort of classical era, and you had those sort of Roman caravans of trade and stuff going on. That's the Banu. That's the inspiration here, where you'd have a trade caravan going around trading, and that is the Star Citizen. They are the Star Citizen equivalent. They are all about trade, and then when they sell as their ships, they count as like a manufacturer. Banu Soli, the Banu Guild. They're selling as their ships, and that's them. Yep. Let's move on to their first ship, the Defender. The Banu Defender is the Banu's fighter ship. One of the great things about the Banu, I should have mentioned in the last part, is because they're these Roman caravan traders, they kind of have not the creme de la crop of all technology, but they have a lot of technology that other races find quite hard. So they might go, oh, Xi'an, I'll buy some of your shields. Not the Xi'an, I'll buy some of your thrusters we talked about earlier. And we'll go to these guys because these guys make good shields. And we'll go to them for their their guns. And then they'll combine it all into the one ship. So they do have quite a good sort of technological footing here, because they do trade to get access to a lot of technology that other races might not have. So they do have quite a lot of mixed match technology all coming together to make quite good, quite powerful little ships. The Banu Defender is their foray into a fighter ship. And the whole purpose of this ship is to just be an escort and to defend their other ships. And it can be a snub craft for the ship we're going to talk about next. It can have their big ship. This one of these can dock on and land, so we'll be able to look after it. There is quite a large amount of interior space on this ship compared to other light fighters. There is beds, there is small amount of amenities, and a place to get up and walk around. And unlike other light fighters, there is the option to have a co-pilot. That is one of the few things. All those stuff add up to the reasons why this ship is great at protecting the other ships around it, because it has these extra wee bit of amenities. It's greater on longer journeys than most light fighters would be on those kinds of things, because normally light fighters have no support in that sort of field at all, because they're expected to be carrier based or station based. This thing doesn't. It's designed for traveling basically, so it has that wee bit of exploration, like a tiny bit of exploration added, even though it's not really exploration. You can get what I'm trying to say. That interior space is also, as well with the Banu, their ships are their homes, because they don't have like houses. The Banu normally are they're traveling merchants. They live in their ships, so their ships are quite well decorated, the same way as you decorate a house. They decorate their ships, and that's why the interior space is a wee bit more. So the person that, a Banu that was a fighter pilot, this would be his house. The ship is his house. I know it's not a lot of space, but he'd probably dock on the next ship, which we're going to talk about, the Merchantman, for the majority of his life. Oh boy, the Merchantman. This is one of the most popular ships in game. It is a huge flying, not space station, what's the word I'm looking for? Shopping centre, there we go, that's what it is. It's a huge flying shopping centre. It has quite good firepower, has quite good defences, and it's going to be a really, really good trade ship. And as well as trading, it is going to be trying to sell the stuff as retail as well as wholesale. So most trading we have in game is wholesale. We just buy bulk and sell bulk. But this ship will be able to sell retail as well, which is where there'll be a large markup in price. So it may take a lot longer. It may have to land, and it may take quite a while to sell its stuff, but it will make more money per trip kind of thing if you're thinking about it, if you're selling it retail. So whereas say you've got this and you've got a Hull C, and they're your two trade ships. The Hull C will be all about travel. You want to be traveling 24/7. With this ship, you don't want to be traveling 24/7. You want to be landed and sell and retail 24/7. So maybe you want other ships doing the supplying, and it's a different style of trade, and it seems to be one that is really popular for a lot of people. Flying market, and it suits the Banu perfectly with their traders' mentality. These ships are flying homes for them as well, so there's a lot of life, a lot of amenities, a lot of everything in there, from there being a big sort of conference room for them to have big meetings in and talk about trade deals and whatever else they're going to do, to sort of luxurious sort of cabins for the people that day to day on the ship, as well as there being even a little suite for guests or the diplomatic sort of stuff beside the conference room. There is a lot on this ship. It is a flying shopping centre, but also a civilization place? Like, flying market, basically a good way to describe it. Like, imagine a flying market. I don't know how else to describe it, but you've got a lot going on there. Right, so we've given them. What should we move on to next? Next it is actually Asperia, and I think that's going to be our last alien manufacturer for today. It is Asperia. Asperia are actually a human manufacturer. You're like, wait a minute, what are they doing here? What are they doing in the alien one? They are a human manufacturer that makes replica alien ships. So aliens that do not sell ships to us, Asperia takes their ones, they salvage what they can from them, and they go, right, can we get this back up and running, or can we make versions of it for humans? So they take Vandal ships, they take Tavaran ships, and they take any other alien race that doesn't just give us their ships, and they go, can we backwards engineer that and make more? Or can we get the ones that we salvage up and running again to sell? And that is what Asperia does. That's what they are. They're the manufacturer that does that. Or the remanufacturer, you could argue. So let's go on to their first spacecraft they produce, and that is the Blade replica. The Blade replica is basically the Vandal's light fighter, and I expect us to be fighting one hell of a lot of these in the days to come. I expect us to be fighting a lot of them in Squadron 42. I expect us to be fighting a lot of NPC blades, but not quite these ones, because these are replicas. These are the ones that Asperia have managed to manufacture and are now selling to humans. They have been retrofitted to fit a human in the flight seat instead of Vandal, because Vandal are a lot bigger than us. They are the Huns, they are the barbarians coming over the hills to attack us. Not much is known about the objectives of the Vandal, other than they are living clans and they periodically invade us. But yeah, the light fighter, this thing is going to be really fast, really nimble, really much a glass cannon, really powerful, military grade, light fighter. Not much else to say. I was looking at my notes here, and I've got the notes from the wiki. Apparently they're used, often bought by the military for training. To train UE pilots, they have people in them, and they run training exercises so they get used to fighting them. Yeah, not much else to say here. Let's move on to the Glaive. The Glaive is basically everything we talked about with the Blade. The Glaive is the medium fighter, but also a step up again. This is the elite medium fighter of the Vandal. Has a lot of firepower, has the guns on both sides, unlike the ship we'll talk about coming up. The Scythe is, is going to be the Vanduul. Give it to their creme de la crop fighters, their aces. This is going to be like the lightning for the humans. We talked about before how the lightning was their creme de la crop fighter, and this is going to be the equivalent on the Vanduul side for when they clash. Yeah, I expect us to be fighting like bosses in these things in the days to come, and I don't expect us to be fighting a lot of them, but I expect it to be a big deal when a couple of these show up. It's going to be a hard fight. It's going to be a hard fight. Yes, they are the sort of veteran special pilot, special forces medium fighter of the Vanduul, and here we have the Asperia making replicas for us. And one thing I just want to note as well, one of the main things that is different between the replica and the originals is actually the flight seat. The Vanduul, because they're a lot bigger than us, they lie down, and they lie down when they're flying, so it's a sort of weird thing they're doing forward facing. Whereas us, we like me right now, we're in chairs. So that is one of the main differences. We're not going to be able to just go onto a Vanduul ship and steal a glaive and fly around. It could be possible, but it's not going to be practical. So we're just going to need to wait and see what that's like in the days to come. Moving on to the next ship, which is alphabetically the Prowler, which isn't actually a Vanduul ship. The Asperia Prowler. Now, this one doesn't have in brackets replica because the original manufacturers aren't around to produce it anymore. The original manufacturer was the Tevarin, and the Tevarin were often likened to the Celts or the Carthaginians in their sort of equivalents for what is Star Citizen, because a lot of Star Citizen lore is based off like the Roman Empire, and like things have an equivalent back then. The Tevarin are sort of like the Celts, and the Carthaginians, they have a similar sort of role there, where we've got the First and Second Tevarin War, which is a lot like the First and Second Punic Wars in the Roman classical era. And the Tevarin are like a warrior, like sort of samurai almost as well in their influence, and they're also bird-like. They are giant birds, and they are now part of the human empire. They don't have their own factions in game anymore. They're just part of us. They're part of the human empire. They're almost like a second-class citizens as well, which I expect there to be a lot of friction and a lot of gameplay caused there. There was the first Tevarin political person not too long ago in the lure as well. So that's going to be interesting to see where they go with that. That's got a lot of similarities to sort of current day events and trying to get rid of racism. We're going to need to see how that evolves in game, and if they touch on it more than they already have, that will all be quite interesting. But we're not here to talk about the Tevarin, we're here to talk about the Prowler. So the Tevarin are no longer around, so Asperia were like, ho brilliant, what salvage can we get and can we remake their stuff? So this is the ships that we used to have to fight back in the day, but now we have fully conquered them, we've fully assimilated the Tevarin. Their military no longer exists to build these, so Asperia have taken over and started selling them instead. The Prowler is their dropship, basically, the Tevarin dropship. It's got a really sort of cool aesthetics. It looks like a bird, it's got those wings, it's got a wee bit of firepower in the two guns, but it's not a big amount of firepower. And they have these really cool sort of canopies, these armoured canopies that sort of turn see-through for you with these lots of little triangle screens. Oh, the Prowler is a really, really cool ship. But it is also insanely expensive for what it is outside of game, and I expect it to be insanely expensive inside a game as well, and having to jump through hoops, because military and exotic and alien and rare. The Tevarin's sort of thing they were really good at was with shields. They had these shields that sort of can be rotated, so if your front shield gets destroyed, you can quickly go right in the hands attacking us from the rear, rotate the shields, and yeah, that's the thing they're really good at. They've got these really powerful sort of gimbaled shields. Yeah. What else do we need to say about the Prowler? Not much else. So let's move on to... where is my... So after the Prowler, it is the Safe, which we mentioned a wee bit a second earlier. So we mentioned the Safe earlier on when we were talking about the Glaive, which was the Vanduul sort of creme de la crop, the Special Forces medium fighter. This is the run-of-the-mill regulars medium fighter, and one of the main differences is it only has one of those big arm winged gun things, whereas the Glaive has it on both sides. This has only got the one. So this is I expect us to be fighting a hell of a lot of these. These things are going to be almost as common as the blades that we talked about. It's the first Vanduul ship. Not much else to talk about here. This is once again replica. It has the human variant with the human cockpit. Going to be a scary medium fighter for us to go up against in Squadron 42, and once we get more Vanduul invasions and stuff in the PU as well, which I'm really looking forward to. I can't wait to have Vanduul periodically invade for defense forces to be formed, kind of like Xenothreat and stuff to push them off. It's going to be fun and exciting gameplay, I do think. It's the type of combat that gets me excited, thinking of invasions and that kind of thing. So yes. Moving on from the Safe to the Talon, and its variant, the Talon Shrike. The Talon and the Talon Shrike, this is Asperia going back to the Tavaran, and it is the Tavaran light fighter, and its variant, the Shrike, has a large missile capacity, so it turns into a little light fighter missile boat. So it's going to be firing off missiles, which is quite cool to see, because we don't really have another ship that's anything like that. The Shrike is really interesting to me because it's the only fighter we have in game that is a missile boat. We've got medium-sized ships like the Freelancer Miss, which is all about firing missiles. We have the Connie, which has a lot of missiles. We don't have a capital-sized ship that's all about missiles. That'd be kind of cool to see as well. Having like a long-range capital ship that's like backline firing missiles, but that's like, we're getting off topic here. This is the only fighter in game that has that sort of missile boat on the small scale. That is really interesting. Apart from that, once again, Tavaran ship, their military no longer exists, as we talked about with the Prowler, so we have this instead. It's got a really cool sort of iridescent sort of colour scheme to it that sort of glows. Yeah, not much else to say. We've got a light fighter here, nimble, not as nimble as the Arrow, but it has a good amount of firepower. Alien Tax, military grade fighter, light fighter. That is that then. So that is us. I just want to double check my notes that I didn't miss an alien manufacturer, because it feels like we got through them pretty fast. Nope, that is them all. With the only other alien crafts being built we are aware of being the Vanduul ones, but we'll give the Vanduul their own video because it feels they're not a human manufacturer, so we'll keep them separate, like the alien non-human manufacturers kind of thing. This is the alien human manufacturers, or the human alien getting tongue-tied. You know what I'm trying to say. So I hope you have all enjoyed this. I shall see you all next time. Bye. We'll be covering some other ship manufacturers. See you all there. Goodbye.